This is Hot Takes Live going on first edition. We are running through the first track, and this is the second session. We have our speaker here, which I'm gonna invite, and Eric Stockton. Welcome.
Hey man, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Very excited to have you. Eric is VP of Demand Generation at Constant Contact. And the title of your session is You Don't Have to Spend More to Produce More SQLs. And I was like, what?
How's that for a clickbait title?
Yeah, it's a really good one. So I'll let you take over. This is your deck. The floor is all yours.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me too. My conversation that we were having the other day, this topic really popped up for me because it's something that I look at as one of those things that you can do to have like that quick win when you come in a new position, or even if you've been a marketing leader for a while, you can sort of just take another look at and maybe, like tweak something very small that's pretty low lift that gives you a relatively high conversion rate change in MQL to SQL. So just give you the backstory really quickly. This is just coming from my own personal experience. About a year ago, SharpSpring, which is a marketing automation and CRM platform, was acquired by Constant Contact. And my role, I was coming in to run marketing for the SharpSpring product. And, just like every new marketing leader that's coming in, you're sort of looking at trying to frame your mind around like what's working, what's not working, understanding what the flows look like, what your conversion rates look like, and just sort of level set on some things. And I, obviously, being the marketing leader, for the product, thinking, okay, where are the quick wins, that I can come in and, and really help move the needle a little bit for the sales team. And so I wouldn't call myself a workaholic, but I did spend a Saturday, myself and maybe a couple of others, just on our own website. It's odd how many people really don't do that enough. But I was able to take the time, spend some time just going through and then just walking through the flow of scheduling demos and, signing up for our own product and figuring out where our forms were that were working or not working, and just kind of thinking about it as a, from a buyer perspective. And, it was real quick that we sort of hit on something that was pretty evident that, we should maybe dive into. And so, if you think about, what we all talk about as, marketers, we talk about creating affinity for the product, generating demand, capturing demand, those sorts of things. And, really thinking about like what the buyer experience looks like. So, assuming that you have done those things, the buyer comes to your website of their own volition, right? They're not incentivized in any way necessarily, but they come to your website of their own volition. They start checking out pricing and looking at your features pages and sort of your top tier buyer enablement content, that sort of thing. And they come through and they request a demo. And this is where the process kind of breaks down a little bit, I think, for a lot of sales-led B2B sites, where what they'll do is, and I think everybody will sort of identify with this. In our site, what we were doing is we were taking those demo requests and then routing them through a BDR team that would then qualify for ICP fit, and then reach out to the prospect and then reschedule, on a calendar for the, for the sales team or the account executive. And one of the things that I've sort of learned over the years is, and I'm stealing this actual statement from my one of our sales leaders, Greg Bond, who had made a statement. He's like, you know what, intent pretty much is going to trump ICP most of the time, right? So we get pretty hung up on ICP and firmographic fit. But if you sort of look at win rates and then stick rates, in the product over time, more often than not, as long as it's a relatively good firmographic, fit, intent is going to trump anything else in terms of how you route them. So essentially, if you think about what's happening is the buyers coming in, if they're requesting a demo, they're telling you what they want, right? They want the demo. They've sort of pre-qualified themselves. They've gone through some, what I'm going to call self-baked, familiarization with your product. They are solution aware, right? Now they are, product or brand aware. And so they are coming in and they're ready to talk, right? So don't delay on that is basically the point here. And so what we did is we basically just did a quick marketing ops change where what we went through and whereas it originally was going through the BDR team and sort of like I refer to it as like a Plinko style. If you've ever seen, any of the game shows out there where, it sort of drops through and, the chip falls at the bottom and you don't necessarily know where it ends. Right. But there's a Plinko style activity where they run through the BDR process and then they get onto an AE's calendar, and it could be a day or two later. That's too long, right? It's long enough for somebody to be in a free trial somewhere else that they could have been talking to your sales team for. That's long enough for them to be talking to somebody else's sales team, right? People talk about speed to lead. This is what they mean. And so I think, ultimately what we did is sort of just, really sort of created a flow that I would want as a buyer, right? Which is, I'm coming through and I'm requesting a demo. I want to talk to a sales rep because I want to talk basically about pricing and does this fit my needs? And then I want to be off the phone again, right? That's pretty much what I'm looking for. And of course, the sales team, that's what they want too, right? They want self-schedulers who have high intent, and then they are quick to get on the calendar and turn that conversation around. And so ultimately that's essentially what, when we routed these folks, anybody who came in and requested a demo through that high intent channel, demo request, and asked to speak to sales, and specifically said, I want to, I'm going to pick a time on the calendar, whether that's Calendly or we use Acuity, which is a different calendar software. We would route those people directly to the AE. They could pick their own time on the calendar. It blocks it off on the calendar for the sales team, and they can hop right on. And they can do that as quick as, within a couple of hours of wanting to hop on. Obviously, they can call us to accelerate that, but we bypass the BDRs altogether in this particular scenario, and we go straight to the AEs. Now, there are scenarios in which it doesn't make sense to send it straight to an AE, and it does need a little bit of qualification. And those would be people that that aren't necessarily as qualified. So these would be people like, people who are downloading an asset, or people who are, looking at a particular piece of content and they're hand raiser. They're not necessarily hand raisers, but they are, they're interested, but they're not ready to buy. Those people will still route through a BDR process, and we will give, the buyer, the information that they need, send them the assets that they need, and then, get them to a position where they're a little bit further along in the buying process where they can raise their hand. So we made that change. It took us, we drank our own champagne here at Sharp Spring. So, we are using our own product for our own marketing automation and routing and everything else. So when we did it, it took us about a week, right? To get everything routed. We have a fairly complicated process, but we got it done. And then the month after that, which I think was in November, it was even sort of a short month because, the holiday. But in November, we saw a 31% increase from MQL to SQL. And it's held pretty steady, throughout the rest of the, going into the new year and until about current. So, that's a huge thing, right? So on the same exact dollars that you were putting, into media, same marketing activities, those sorts of things, to get a 31% increase from MQL to SQL, is a huge gain, right? Especially right now, everybody's either definitely not looking at, big new budgets going into 23. And they're definitely not necessarily thinking about and some, obviously there's a lot of companies that are even pulling back a little bit on the budget side, and marketers are still being held to the same goal. I don't know of very many marketers that, get that sort of relief. It's usually like, what are we going to do more with, with less? And this is maybe one of those opportunities, I think, for anybody who's thinking about trying to figure out how to improve that. So that's my topic, and hopefully that's going to help some folks.
I love it. I was nodding all the time, Eric. I was like, yeah, yes to this, absolutely yes to this. And 30%, 31% increase MQL to SQL, it's a pretty huge gain. So I'm wondering what's like the mental shift there, and anyone that has questions for Eric, feel free to write them in the comments. We'll pick them up. Yeah. So the mental shift there is, hey, let's stop putting people through preconceived artificial steps that we as an organization care about because this is how we function. And let's think about where these prospects are in the buyer's journey. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, it really does boil down to if you think about how you want to buy something, right? You think about the simplicity with which you want to buy it. Yeah. Just try to put yourself in the mind of that buyer's shoes. And that's what we do as businesses. That's what we always tend to do, is we tend to optimize for our own scaling ability. We optimize for
the mechanics of how our organizations work versus how people want 100%.
To work. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what, I mean, it's natural, right? You've got marketing ops involved, you've got, potentially some other teams that are involved, and they're trying to say, how do we make this more, of a scalable opportunity? Sales is involved. Right. This is one of those situations where, you're trying to design a horse, you end up with a camel. And ultimately, the one simplifying North Star ought to be, what do our buyers really want to do?
Yeah, here? For sure. And I'm interested. So right now you have a higher intent flow and then a lower intent one. How many flows do you have?
We have 3 now. Last month we offered a new flow, which is what I'm calling frictionless activation, which is a free trial into a tiered offerings for our products. So we have high intent for demo requests to sales. We have low intent, which, is going to be, folks that are looking at assets or otherwise, not ready to talk to sales. Yeah. And we have a third, now, which is, really, let me go and check this product out myself, because
no product led self-serve type of thing.
Yeah.
So FYI, Elise was like, yeah, nodding along here too, which I found very funny.
Yeah.
And then Matthew is asking, do you see a difference with SMB, mid-market, enterprise? I find that enterprise buying process will try to consider multiple vendors in their process. Speed appears to be less of a factor. And to ask a second question, can you enable BDRs to demo 3 features and show product?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I caught all that because it all went away right on.
It's here.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. So are we going to try to consider multiple vendors in their process? So I think that's exactly right. Right. And I think that's exactly why you want to do something like this, right? Because, everybody's heard the term speed to lead. I think that's, you do want to have a conversation to start setting the tone for what's important to the buyer. And then you, as if you're a sales rep, and I've, run sales teams in my past life, one of the things that we'd always coach them to do is say, look, we want you to set the, when you're coming in, you're talking to the buyer, you're trying to understand them a little bit better about what their pain points are and what problems that they're trying to solve. You're in there and you're trying to do those things. And it also at the same time, you're really trying to set the conversation, right? So everybody else, other competitors, other alternatives, they're really, that buyer is thinking about you and then how they compete with you, not the other way around. So you're the one that's sort of controlling the narrative a little bit. And that's obviously what AEs do well, or salespeople do well. They they empathize with the buyer, and then they figure out, like where are the pain points, and then help to construct the narrative. And then the other is, when we talk about, hopefully that answers your question. And happy, by the way, Matthew, if you want to talk offline. And then the other one was, can you enable BDRs to demo 3 features and show a product? So I think that's something actually we're experimenting with, because we have a great sales team. And one of the things that this did is, we took obviously some of the pressure off of the sales reps, right? Or the BDRs specifically, because we're routing more conversations to the AE, directly to the AEs, freeing up some capacity for the BDRs. And then, the sales leader and I, like we've been having conversations over the last few months around like, how do we help the BDRs become more, of a relationship, a little bit more relationship building, where they are probing a little bit more discovery, and essentially coming alongside and understanding what those pain points are a little bit better. So I joked the other day where I said, some of the best salespeople that I've ever experienced, for our, well, not necessarily for our team, but in general for the teams that I've run, have actually been the ICP, right? Which I know is totally counter to maybe what a lot of folks do, but because it's really hard to scale something like that.
Yeah.
But if you think about the best closers in the earliest stages of every single business, the best closer was typically always the founder.
Right.
So, that because they knew their product, they knew what the pain points were, they knew exactly what needed to be done.
Right.
And they were in there and they were selling deals at higher rates than the first and second and third person that you brought in on the team, right? Yeah. They could never sort of replicate, what the original founder was doing. And the reason why is because they were the ICP, they understood so much better than I think. And
on this note,
it takes time.
Our time is up, Eric. Thank you so much. This was awesome. If people want to reach out to you separately, how can they do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the easiest thing to do. People DM, and happy to help however I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Eric Stockton, VP Dimension at Constant Contact. We're going to take a small break, 3 minutes exactly before our next session. And then we're going to be back for the last session of the first half. See you in a bit.